Welcome everyone to a Chi Jungle Educational. In this video, we are going to explain Chi in detail, showing jungle rotations as well as tips and tricks for the hero to optimize your gameplay. Now, before we get started, I would greatly appreciate it if you like the content to smash that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. Thank you so much, and let's get started with the video. So we're going to start here by explaining Chi's abilities in detail. We'll start with the first ability here called Crippling Puncture, which has a mana cost of 100. Target an enemy hero to deal 90, 160, 180, 200 superior magic damage. Apply a tapering 35% movement speed slow and disarm them for 1.6, 2.4, 3.2, 4 seconds. This has a cast range of 700 and a cooldown of 12 seconds. So a nice anti-carry spell there, which disarms them from auto-attacking for a few seconds there. Very, very strong against carries. The second ability here is called a Thousand Cuts, mana cost of 100. Target a location to throw a Spirit Shredder there. The Spirit Shredder deals 45, 70, 95, 120 magic damage per second in the radius, but costs 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 0.6, 0.8, 1, 1.2% of your max mana per second while this effect is active. And then reactivate to return the Shredder to yourself. It has a cast range of 800 and a cooldown of 3 seconds. So this skill does AoE damage per second in an area, and it drains a portion of your mana while the Shredder is activated. Our third ability here is Enlightenment. Passively deals 20, 40, 60, 80, 100% of an enemy hero's extra auto attack damage per second, DPS, as superior magic damage for each instance of ability damage dealt to them. Extra auto attack DPS is the difference between the target's total auto attack DPS and their base auto attack DPS. Damage over time effects apply the corrected amount of 0.75 times bonus damage per game frame, 0.05 seconds. Target a location to relocate the Spirit Shredder from 1,000 cuts while it is active. So you can also use this to move the second skill when the Shredder is out to a new location. And we have a Staff of the Master effect here. Makes your auto attacks bleed the enemy's chi, dealing 1 superior magic damage per second for 2 seconds. This counts as ability damage and triggers Enlightenment. So this skill is based on the opponent's extra auto attack DPS, which is what is going to allow Chi to scale and make his skills do more damage as the game progresses into the mid and late game. Our fourth and last ability, our ultimate here, is Ancestral Assault, which has a mana cost of 250. Target a linear area to charge up his chi there. After a 0.4 second delay, the chi explodes, dealing 3 instances of 50, 90, 130 superior magic damage, and applies a 0.5, 0.75, 1 second disarm, perplex, and 20% movement speed slow to enemies within the area. Each chi instance has a 0.3 second delay between them. Trigger damage from Enlightenment caused by Ancestral Assault deals 0.4, 0.7 one-time damage. Has a cast range of 1200 and a cooldown of 80 seconds. So those are Chi's abilities. Now we will go into some strengths and weaknesses of when you would want to pick up a Chi in your game. And as always, we will start with the strengths of Chi. So one of the big strengths of Chi is going to be his jungle stack clearing speed, which comes from his second skill here, 1,000 cuts, dealing a magic damage per second. So with this skill, we're going to be able to take out the jungle camps relatively quickly. And thus, here we are with a jungle educational for Chi. He is a late game powerhouse with his third skill here, Enlightenment. This is what makes Chi scale very well into the late game and makes him act as an anti-carry, turning the enemy's powers, their own powers against them with his enlightenment. Now, another strength of Chi is that he is able to disarm his opponents and stop their auto attacks, not only with his crippling puncture for 4 seconds at max level there on the Q spell, but also his ultimate disarms and perplexes, both of these skills having the disarm through magic immunity. This is going to be very key. So this is going to be helping us to be disruptive to the enemy carry, even if they have something such as a shrunken head picked up. Chi has early gank presence due to, we are going to show you the jungle rotation in a few moments. We're going to be very high level in comparison to our opponents, which is a big benefit of jungling. You get to snowball in XPM very early on and thus give yourself the ability to have high gank presence on the map. Chi is an excellent split pusher and anti-push style of hero. With the 1000 cuts, we're able to push out creep waves and even defend against tower pushes from our opponents to a degree. So he can quickly counter push and farm very quickly. And arguably the biggest strength here of the Chi is going to be when we're going up against agility carries that like to build high attack speed and high attack damage. That is what's going to make our Ancestral Assault, which is our ultimate, on top of the Enlightenment, deal high amounts of burst damage and turn the opponent's powers against them. So Chi has a lot of strengths here. We will now go over some of the weaknesses of Chi. So in the early and mid game, Chi has very low power. He more or less comes online once the opponent has built more attack speed and damage, which is how we scale as a hero. But in the early game, it's hard to utilize their power when they are weaker. And if we are not ran as a jungler, we take a lot longer to get higher level, and thus it takes us much longer to reach our big power spike. So early and mid game, if we are not very high on XPM in comparison to our opponents, we have very low power level. Chi requires enemy damage dealers to be stronger so that we also become stronger. So if the opponent does not have high power level, then we are also going to be weaker in comparison. So Chi has a lot of skill shots. His second skill, the 1000 Cups, they have to be standing inside the saws for it to deal damage. And also the ultimate comes on a delay. It has a 0.4 second delay on cast, and then each instance has a 0.3 second delay between, each charge of the nuke there. So there are some skill shots with the hero, and if they are moving and very quick, it can be sometimes difficult to land the skills. So sometimes we will not always be able to land our abilities. Chi is very weak against heavy silence-based enemy heroes. He is a caster and a ganker that relies on casting skills and using that against his opponents. So heavy silences are very disruptive for the Chi. And then lastly, I would say when we go up against magic damage style of carries that do not build into attack speed and damage items, it's going to make our enlightenment a lot weaker, and it's going to be harder for us to use their power against them if they don't have a lot of power themselves. So magic damage carries that like to kill with spells and not build into damage per se are going to be kind of the bane or weakness of Chi. So those are the strengths and weaknesses of the Chi. Now I think it's time we get into the fun part, which is the jungle rotation. So we'll go ahead and we will find our replay here, and we will get started with, I'm sure, what you guys are all here for, which is the Chi jungle rotation. So as always, I like to talk about key bindings in my jungle educationals. Since we are a hero that does not have minions, there are not going to be any kind of special key bindings for this hero. I just simply bind the hero to control 1, and that will be it for the key bindings. So we are in the replay here. We'll go ahead and get started with the jungle rotation. So, unlike a lot of the other educationals, we do not buy any items on the Chi to start off the jungle rotation. We're going to save all of our gold. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be going into an early bottle. So as soon as we kill our first camp, we are going to be picking up our first item of the game. So we're going to go into the jungle without buying any items, which is unique to any of the other jungle educationals that we have seen so far. So the camp spawns at 30 seconds. I'll back this up really quickly here. Make sure not to miss this point. So we stand outside the edge of the camp and we're going to throw the shredder at 29 seconds. The shredder does not block the camp from spawning. So we skill our W skill here, level 1. That's what we're going to use to jungle. And we're going to hit every creep evenly. We want to get on the ramp so that the ranged creeps will miss as much as possible. We could save on some HP. And then we pull back the shredder with the second skill again. Later we will be using the E-spell, which will move the shredder once it's out. You can move it to a new location. But for the beginning here, we will only be throwing the shredder and pulling it back. So we immediately send the bottle after killing the first jungle camp. We're on our way to level 2, and we're going to be stacking both the hard camp and the medium camp here. Once we get to 53, we attack the hard camp, then we attack the medium camp, and we run above the tree line here. It's very important we run above. That way the creeps don't walk back into the spawns. And we will stack both camps here as we get the message. And we go back to farming the easy camp. We make sure that the saws are hitting all of the creeps. We use our bottle while killing the camp. And we're going to use the E to move it over to the hard camp here. So very important, something I want to say here is that as long as this is not a Catman camp, we're going to kill all the little creeps in the camp and leave the big creep here. So we move the shredder with E. We're now working on this camp. As you guys can see, it costs 25 mana to move the shredder, which is a lot less than the 100 mana cost it is to cast the spell. We're going to move the shredder back further, and we're going to auto attack down the two small creeps there. We're going to kill them both, and then we're going to go back to base. So we are about halfway to level 3 now. We're going to, as on our way back to base, we're going to buy a health potion and a TP scroll. And we are going to bottle sip in the fountain while we port. We are going to be porting to this tower. So we're going to be bottle sipping while TPing. You can keep bottle sipping. We get to full health. And we're going to run here to stack the two camps and make them triple stacks. When we get our first 100 gold after TPing with the health pot, we're going to buy a Veiled Rot, and we're going to be using this to do the jungle camps here in the future. So this is another important thing here I'll show you guys. We stack both camps, and we're going to throw the shredder right here. And what we're going to do is, as we stack both the camps, we're going to leave the shredder here, and we're not going to pull the shredder back to us. We're going to leave it here, and we're going to go take the rune. So the shredder will sit here dealing damage to the camps while we run to the rune, and it will automatically pull back to us because it is too far away from us. So we use all our bottle sips, and we take the rune here, and then we're going to go back into the jungle. So as you guys can see, the camps have been damaged a little bit. This is going to help us speed up the jungling to a degree. So we're on our way back into the jungle, and we're going to do this medium camp first before we do the hard camp. So this is probably going to be the hardest part of the educational here. So I want you guys to make sure to pay close attention to this part. This is going to be the part that is going to be the most difficult. We're going to pull out the medium camp as I cancel my attack there. We're going to pull it out to about here. We throw the shredder. And we're going to more or less run around in circles, kiting the creeps. And we're going to use the health pot immediately to make sure we stay healthy on life here. And as soon as we kill enough creeps, we're going to get level 3. We instantly level the 1,000 cuts to level 2. Now I did get a haste rune here, so I'm going to try to showcase to you guys that the runes do not really matter too much. If you get an illusion rune or a regen rune, those are arguably going to be the best runes for this. But the haste doesn't really do a whole lot. Invisibility is really good because you can use invisibility and throw the shredder without canceling the shredder, and you can just sit there and kill it and save HP. But I got a haste rune, so as we're about to kill the remaining creeps to the camp, we're going to pop our Veiled Rot, and we are going to relocate the shredder with E over to the hard camp. And we want to use one bottle sip here as well, I believe. Actually, I didn't need to use a bottle sip. So we have enough mana that it's going to be fine. So we killed this camp with the health pot. We ran in circles. We're going to be more or less about half life or so. And now we're going to try to kill this camp before 3 minutes. We're going to get level 5 here. We hit level 4. And once we kill the rest of this with the remaining mana we have, we're going to hit level 5. So here's a little trick that is very nice we can do as long as we do not get Catmans, I believe. So we had Vulture Lord, Minotaur, and Vulture Lord, which is really good camps for us to get this to respawn in time. We're going to break our Veiled Rot, and we're going to pull the creeps outside of the ring. And we're going to kill one of the creeps before the 3-minute mark so that this does respawn. And this is going to be important for later. We're going to have one more camp to farm. If you don't get this camp to respawn, it's not the end of the world. You will just be one camp behind in terms of XPM. But for the most optimal chi rotation, we want to pull this camp out and get it and kill it outside at the very end of the Veiled Rot, getting this to respawn. So as you guys can see, I'm just going to pause here really quickly. We are already level 5 at 3 minutes. This is insanely fast farming for a hero that's not a air quotes meta jungling hero. So we're already 2 levels above the minute mark here, being level 5 at 3 minutes. We're going to skill 3 points into the 1,000 cuts. So we have level 3 of that. We're going to be maxing this skill first. And we're going to immediately buy Striders here. We are going to be going back to base another time. So we have Bottle and now straight Striders. We're going to be able to kill this easy camp with enough time to get back to base. We have enough mana from our remaining Bottle Sip. So we kill this camp, and now we are going to be going back to base. So we have enough gold for a TP to come back into the jungle. We are level 5 and about a third here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to TP to this tower. So last time we TP'd to this tower to stack the hard camp and the medium camp. We're going to now be porting to this tower as I use my bottle sips. Make sure to bottle sip while TPing so we get the most amount of mana back. And what we're going to do now, and this is why it was very important that we got this camp to respawn, we are going to stack all 3 of these camps. I'm going to show you guys how we can stack 3 camps with Chi. This is a fun little nifty thing here. So you can do this on Legion. You cannot do this on Hellborn because the hard camps are too far apart. But on Legion, you can stack 3 camps. So what we do here, and I did show you guys this in the Solstice Jungle Educational, so if you have watched that one before, this will look a little familiar. But instead of obviously using our second skill on Solstice, we're going to have a different way of doing it with Chi. So we're going to auto attack this creep at 51. Very important. 51, we make sure to auto attack this creep. I'll show you guys one more time. We want to make sure that this Vagabond gets attacked at 51. So at 51, I'm throwing my attack. It gets hit by 52. We're going to throw the Shredder into the medium camp, and as soon as we get close enough, we move it with E, with the relocate, to the hard camp here, and we're going to stack all 3 camps, and you guys will see the message pop up, 3 neutral camps stacked. So we we have gotten level 5 by 3 minutes. We have 3 out of the 4 camps in the jungle double stacked to work with here at 4 minutes. We're going to have a lot of stacks to take. Really important here, all the runes from now on, I will not be picking them up. And the reason for that is a lot of the times we will either have to save the rune for a mid laner, or the enemies will be roaming and camping the runes. We might have a Nighthound following us around. You guys know the deal when jungling. It's not always likely that we will get the runes. And this is a big reason why we go back to base several times throughout the rotation. It's going to make sure we always have bottle sips to work with for our jungling rotation. So we're not going to take the rune here. It's not going to influence how we jungle at all. Only the first rune is needed. It's very important we get the first rune. And we're going to work on both of these double stacks at the same time. The higher level we get of 1,000 cuts, the easier the jungling is going to be. The camps are going to die much quicker as we continue to level up. So what we're going to do here is we're going to buy a health potion. And we're going to pull both of the camps together. If I could stop missing my auto attacks. We're going to throw the Shredder down, and we're going to do just like we did earlier. We're going to pop the health potion. We're going to kite the camps with the saws, making the creeps run around in circles. We use one of the bottle sips here. We get level 6. We skill our ultimate, and we continue to take out the jungle camps here. So we're level 6.5 at 4, we'll say about 435 or so. So again, we're level 6 at a really good timing. We have our ultimate now, so we could gank with our mid laner, with our off laner if we want. But we're not done doing the jungle rotation, so we're going to keep jungling. We want to continue to keep leveling and make ourselves more powerful. Again, as a Chi, we don't really have too much power early game. We have more power the longer the game goes, the more we outlevel our opponents. So I'm going to show you guys the next part of the rotation, which there's two ways to do this rotation. Number one, which I'm not going to show you in this video, but I will hopefully show you guys in the part 2 educational, so make sure you guys do take a look at the part 2 educational, is you would pull these two camps together just like we pulled these two camps together here and we farmed them together. So we would have the more or less double camp. It's like a 1.5 camp hard camp and a single easy camp. We pull them together, we throw the saws here in the middle, we run around in circle, and we kill the two camps. From that, we would get level 7, level 7.5, and then we would go to base, and by 5 minutes we would be in base. We could TP with a Veiled Rot and gank long lane, which is really, really good. So we would be level 7.5 at 5 minutes, and we can gank the enemy carry with our offlaner. At level 7, we can deal anywhere between 500 and 600 damage, depending on if the offlaner has lockdown for us to deal more saws damage with our W skill here. So it's very, very good to gank the enemy carry at 5 minutes. We hit a big power spike being level 7, and the enemy carry is still very weak. They probably don't have their ultimate yet. They may or may not have too much build-up items from their farming lane. So that's going to be the first rotation here, but I'm not going to show you guys that in this video because, again, this is just a practice mode game where we're playing against just the creep. So I want to show you guys what is the most optimal way to continue farming in the jungle, at least in the early game. So what we're going to do here, instead of pulling these two camps together and farming them, is we're going to wait, we're going to stack them, and we are going to be sending out items that we just got gold for from killing the other two camps, which is pieces to a Ring of Sorcery and a Veiled Rot. We're going to have a Veiled Rot, and we're going to do another Veiled Rotted camp. So I'll speed this up a little bit here. You guys will be able to see we're going to stack the hard camp first, and then the easy camp. We run this way. We get both camps to stack. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use the Veiled Rot here. We use the Veiled Rot, we throw the Shredder. When the Veiled Rot is almost expired, we're going to stand here, we kill this. And from this camp, we're going to get level 7. After this camp dies, we're going to immediately relocate the Shredder. We have enough mana to kill this easy camp as well. We hit level 7, we instantly skill our 1000 cuts level 4. And even with 80 mana, we can kill this double stacked easy camp. So you guys will see that we're going to be level 7.5 here. Almost 7 2/3, and we have our amulet for our Ring of Sorcery. We send ourselves a TP, and if you guys don't want to gank right away at 5 minutes, you can finish those stacks. You can still TP right now, you just won't be able to use a Veiled Rot. That's going to be the main difference. And there's a good chance that the opposing carry would be level 6 by now, so it is about a 45-second later rotation to potentially gank over in the long lane with our offlaner. But again, this one is not too bad. This one just showcases continuously farming. And what we will do now is we will, with this rotation, we keep jungling and we're going to camp the 6-minute rune in the bot rune. So we'll go ahead, we'll go back into the jungle, we make it just in time to stack the two camps. Now we don't have full mana, but that's not too big of an issue for us. We're only missing about 100 mana. So we would go here, we would camp the rune, ask our mid laner if he wants the rune. If he doesn't want it, we take the rune. We could either gank with the rune, continue jungling. We have all the options available to us what we want to do. And again, now that we are level 7, we no longer need health pots to jungle stacked camps. So it's going to be very easy to jungle as long as you're placing the Shredder in a good spot, kiting the camp to a degree. And you will see I'm going to relocate the Shredder back and forth. It keeps the aggro of the creeps. And we only tanked about half life there. We are level 8.5 now. 8.5 at 6.5 minutes. So we're still 2 levels above the minute mark. This is without ganking, without doing any kind of rotations anywhere. Just naturally farming in our jungle. We only need these 4 jungle camps. We never need to touch the 2 pull camps that we always like to leave for our short lane to utilize pulling. I explain that in all my educationals. The only time you ever want to take those camps is if you get multiple camps blocked, you have people following you in the jungle, and you have nowhere to farm. You don't have a lane to farm, so you have to farm those camps. But we do want to avoid those at all costs. We want to only use these 4 camps, and it's going to be plenty for us to farm. So now we're not going to wait to stack them. We're just going to pull them together. We're going to slowly kill the 2 camps, and this will get us almost to level 9. We're going to be just short of level 9 here. This is 642. We are almost level 9 on Chi. Again, we have the 1000 cuts maxed out. We are only leveling Crippling Puncture as well. We're not going to level Enlightenment because this skill doesn't do enough in the early game. We're going to wait till level 10, 12, 13, and 14 to level Enlightenment. We're going to max out first the 1000 cuts and then the Crippling Puncture. This will assist us in extra damage for ganks. It'll give us extra seconds of disarm. It lowers the cooldown of Crippling Puncture per level, so we can use it more frequently. Overall, it's just better to get Crippling Puncture. And now we will have enough gold for our Pickled Brain component of the Ring of Sorcery. We'll have Bottles, Striders, and Sorcery Ring by under 7 minutes. This is an amazing rotation. We're very high level in comparison to everyone else in the game, and we offer our team between 500 and a little more of damage in any kind of gank scenario. So if you have heroes with crowd control in your mid lane and your off lane, it's really easy to set up ganks, and you're over leveled, so you deal lots of damage. It's really, really good. So that's going to do it for the jungle rotation for Jungle Chi. From here, it's up to you guys how much you want to gank, how active you want to be, how much you want to farm. Always remember that Chi scales the longer the game goes. The more your opponent has farm, the more your hero is going to do in terms of scaling powers. So it's okay to take the game slow as well. You don't always have to feel like you're in a rush, but at the same time, you want to utilize the extra levels that you have in comparison to your opponent. So the earlier you gank, the better. And I do recommend the 5-minute ganking, which again, I'm going to show you guys that in educational part 2. So we didn't showcase it here, but that's going to prove to be really, really good. So that's going to do it for the jungle rotation. Next, I want to show you guys the different item builds that we can do on Chi. So Chi has a couple of item builds that are not too bad. And for the most part, we're going to be buying a lot of similar items. The item builds aren't going to vary too much. Chi is, of course, a caster. He wants to take advantage of certain aspects. But let's go into the first item build here. So this item build is what I like to call, I'd call this the standard item build. I think this is more or less one of the better item builds for Chi. It just kind of offers you everything you need. So in the jungle rotation, you guys saw me go bottle into Striders into Mana Ring. We're going to have that in this build. We're going to go right into a portal key after the Mana Ring, which we should be getting anywhere between 9 and 13 minutes, which is a really good timing for a portal key. This is still like the early game. We haven't really entered mid game yet. We'll be able to use the portal key to set up ganks and position ourselves for ultimate and saws and everything. It's really, really good to pick up an early portal key. And then after portal key, we will build into Spell Shards 3. This is going to allow us a lot of mana sustain for split farming, jungling, extra damage for killing heroes that have magic armor. The Spell Shards 3 is really, really good on Chi. And then after the Spell Shards, we would build into a Sheep Stick. This is for more of the mid to late game item. And with the Sheep Stick and the Portal Key, we can always jump the enemy carry, use our Ancestral Assault, which is our ultimate, and more or less burst them down, turn their power against them. It's really, really powerful. And we can throw a Post Haste in the mix anywhere in this build, depending on how mobile we want to be. So this is the first item build for the Chi. Again, I call this one the standard item build. I like this one a lot. The next item build here, I'll change some stuff up. As we can see here, this is what I like to call the caster build for Chi. So with this build, we focus mostly on our ability damage. We're not going to have great positioning or mobility with this build. So instead of going into a sorcery ring, we would build a Jade Spire. So we would go bottle into Striders into a Jade Spire. This allows us to have more cast range. We're able to play more safe and use our skills from farther away so we don't have to get into danger. Again, we are a squishy intelligence hero. If we're against high nuke damage heroes and heroes we don't want to be close to, the Jade Spire is really good in a lot of scenarios. Again, I don't think it's the best item build for Chi, but it can be good in certain situations. And also when we're split pushing lanes, we can hide in trees and throw the Shredder to farm the wave and then pull it back, and we can more or less farm from the safety of the tree line. So the Jade Spire has a lot of good uses. And then we would build into the spell shards again and items like Grimoire of Power and Restoration Stone. This is just mostly going to be bulking up all of our spell damage. Honestly, I probably should have put a portal key in here. You probably would want to sell the bottle and throw a portal key in the mix here somewhere. And then the combination of Jade Spire and Portal Key would give you a lot of range and mobility to positioning rather to work with. So I think there should be a Portal Key in this build. But again, this is the caster build, so it focuses mostly on amping up your spell damage and dealing more damage overall. Um, Not my favorite build, but something to consider, and something that can definitely be fun to work with. So that's build number 2. Number 3 is going to be the utility build. So this build is going to strictly focus on buying like the tier 2 style of items that offer us lots of utility for the team and for ourselves. So we would buy a chalice instead of a sorcery ring, and then we would build into items like Sand Scepter, Tablet, and Storm Spirit. And these are going to be more or less specific case scenario item usages. So, obviously Sand Scepter when we're dealing with silences, when we're dealing with heroes that kind of are hard to catch and whatnot, and we want the immobilize. We more so buy it for the dispel effect. So it's really good against heroes with silence or buffs that we can't kill people quickly enough if we're against monarchs and stuff like that. We need to purge the chrysalis when we want to kill the enemy carry. There are a lot of good use case scenarios for the Sand Scepter. The Storm Spirit can also set up for our ultimate. It is a bit less good to have a Storm Spirit without a portal key, but still something to consider. And Tablet, again, more of a niche pickup if we're against pharaohs and people that can lock us down, or if we need the Tablet to kind of position ourselves against certain abilities. This is more of a situational style of build, but it is a pretty decent one. You can also use these items on teammates, of course. So overall, it's great for the team. And again, this build will more likely than not depend on the game-specific cases that we would want to go these items. So that's our item build number 3. And our last item build that I want to show you guys here is what I like to call the mobility ganker build. It's going to be quite similar to our first build, but a little bit different. We would still go bottle striders into sorcery ring. The only difference here is that we would pick up an early post haste before the portal key. And what the early post haste allows us to do is to just be more aggressive on the map. We can utilize this if we have a lot of ganking teammates. And if we snowball and get some ganks going in the early game, we get a really early post haste. We can run into the enemy jungle, maybe steal their stacks and be very mobile, be very disruptive. There are some cases where the post haste can be really good. And then we still build into a portal key as well. The main thing with this build is we're skipping a lot of the build up like the spell shards, and we're going to go immediately into the sheepstick. So with this build, we're going to get like a 30 or under 30-minute sheepstick with all this stuff. These are more cheap items. And the earlier sheepstick is going to give us a lot of presence on the map with the portal key and the post haste specifically. So this build is the mobility ganker build. Very disruptive and in-your-face kind of chi build. Definitely a fun one, and I think you guys would like trying this one out. So those are the four chi builds that I recommend. And again, they're going to depend on the game to game. And I think that's it for this one. So yeah, those are the item builds. Next, I want to go into explaining late game item build choices on Chi. So with Chi, a lot of the games are going to be going into mid and late game. So we're going to want to be looking at the late game item pickups. So the first one I want to talk about here is the sheep stick. So The reason we value a sheepstick very highly as a late game item is to be able to disable the enemy carry or their key hero, and it also allows us to get more shredder damage. The longer that they are stuck in place, the longer we can sit our saws on top of them, and those deal magic damage per second with the enlightenment damage as well. It's really, really powerful for having lockdown on the chi. A sheepstick is arguably one of the best items we can pick up. Restoration Stone is another extremely powerful late game item on chi. Ideally, we want to pick up Resto Stone when we already have a sheepstick. Then we have two sheepsticks and we'll have two Ancestral Assault ultimates to work with. So Restoration Stone becomes really good when we either need our spells to be up more than once, if there's perhaps two carries that we want to kill, or if having one round of spells isn't enough. Usually it is enough to get kills, but this is a super late game item. Really, really powerful one as well on Chi. Grimoire of Power, I want to talk about this one. So this one increased your burst damage. You activate it and you get plus 25% spell damage, which is really, really good with the Saws and the Ancestral Assault. And what I would recommend is getting this item specifically when we're dealing with an enemy strength carry. Typically, the enemy strength carries, they have a lot more health pool to work with, and it's a really, or it's a lot harder to burst them down with our combo. So if we want to get closer to a one-shot combo, we want to pick up the Grimoire of Power in the late game. It also reduces our ability cooldowns a bit, gives us our ultimate more frequently. Um, we don't care too much about the magic lifesteal. It does give good stats, but we mostly care about it for the extra spell damage, which is really, really nice on Chi. And another kind of situational niche item I want to talk about is the Staff of the Master. So Staff of the Master gives us good extra damage, but in order for us to really utilize the Staff of the Master, I think we're going to need to have a Shrunken Head due to needing to auto attack our enemy in order to bleed the chi. And I would consider getting a Staff of the Master if we have an ally that it's really worthwhile to upgrade. So, for example, if we have like a Sandwraith in our team, he's a carry that's really powerful with Staff. But we have nobody in our team that could staff him, and we don't need to buy other specific items. It's okay to buy a Staff of the Master on Chi and upgrade your teammate. It's a really good um, it's a good effect, but it's hard to take advantage of the auto attack function of Chi because he's in late game. It's really hard for you to sit there and auto attack the opposing carry. But if you're able to do so, it's a really powerful staff effect. So, in my opinion, if you have a staff picked up on Chi, you're probably going to want to have a Shrunken Head as well. Otherwise, you'll most likely get controlled down by spells. So it is kind of a harder pickup to make use of, but it does have its niche case scenarios, and I wanted to make sure to explain that to you guys. Um, so yeah, before we kind of wrap up the educational, I want to go over some tips and tricks that we went over, or at least explained in the video here. Firstly, we went over efficient stacking, how to stack with the chi. We could stack, we usually stack 2 camps at once, but we have the power to stack 3, even in the early game by moving around our shredder, which is really nice. Um, we can use our shredder to split push lanes, which again I'm going to show some of these things in the part 2 educational when we get down into a real game and go over a replay. That we can use the shredder and farm from a safe distance and then pull back the shredder, which is especially good with Jade Spire. Something to note is that items do not work with our enlightenment damage or our E. So items like Codex, they do not work on our enlightenment. It's only ability damage that's going to work with the enlightenment. So our crippling puncture, our thousand cuts, and our ancestral assault will be able to take advantage of the enlightenment. And then another one is, which again, hopefully I can showcase in the part 2, is that we can move our saws when we're done farming creeps, is that we can move the saws to tree lines when we're split pushing before we portal key away. Because what happens is when we run too far away, the saws automatically follow us, which can give our opponent an idea of where we are hiding. But what we can do is we can move the saws to the trees and then portal key away, and then the saws, they will not see where the saws have moved. So they might still think we're hiding in trees when we're split pushing and whatnot. It's a nice little trick that will make enemies think that you're still hiding in a certain area, kind of keep them guessing where you are. But that's all I have for tips and tricks for the Chi. And again, I will hopefully be able to showcase a lot of this stuff with an actual live replay, which we'll do in a part 2. So if you guys enjoy this educational, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And as I said probably a couple of times by now, I will be doing a part 2 where I analyze the replay, explaining my decisions that I made throughout the match. I just want to thank you guys all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.